This video is made in support from the beautiful people on my Patreon page. More information about my Patreon later in this video. Hello all you beautiful people, I'm Mizzz Sally Pryde. It's with 3 Z's and a Y because why not? And in this video I'm going to be looking at AITA again, but this time I'm going to be looking at trans stories. That's right, trans stories here on AITA. For those of you who are new here, I'm a trans woman and I make a bunch of trans-friendly stuff. Let's get going. AITA for uninviting my transgender sister to my wedding. Some background, I have a trans sister, came out to us around a year ago, but had to be on hormones for longer and hid it from us until she had moved out into her own place, probably because our parents are very conservative and known to be transphobic. As a result, there was a huge fight and a ton of people in our family, including our parents, cut her off and don't talk to her anymore. I like to think I've been pretty supportive of her so far, using her pronouns and her name and all that, which has been hard considering our fam give for doing so. I even made it a point to visit her every so often. While she doesn't see most of our family since last year, I also promised that if and when I got married in the future, she would still be invited despite any tension with our family. Me and my fiance got engaged a while back. My parents, especially my dad, absolutely adore the guy. And since my sister came out, they've almost seen him as the substitute son. Almost as a result, he's definitely more on their side of their situation. And he's made it clear he doesn't really agree with or like my sister all that much. After the proposal, which was very elaborate and surprising and orchestrated by my parents, who were at the wedding planners, started talking to me about planning the big day and even offered to pay for everything. I mentioned I wanted to invite my sister, and they shut the idea down immediately, talking about how she disrespected the family and cut them off and all that. It basically gave me an ultimatum: having my wedding planned and paid for by them, or have my sister there and don't come at all. I took my parents' offer because I couldn't really afford to pay for an entire wedding, and because my fiance pressured me into accepting it, I broke the news to my sister, and she's very understandably upset. But I'm still inviting her to a smaller after party over Zoom so we could still be together on the big day. I still feel really guilty about this though. So Reddit, AITA. So her parents don't accept her. And that's obviously wrong. They're the assholes in this situation as well. But this poster is also the asshole in this situation, because you're literally not inviting your sister for being trans. You don't appease to bigots. Simple as that. So with this post, they've been labeled the asshole, and there's also some edits here I want to read. Edit: I don't think I made it clear enough how overbearing my parents are. Just saying no to them wasn't really an option for me, and if I declined their offer, they simply wouldn't have come, whatever, to a smaller wedding. I mean, I managed to plan, which would have been even worse. Edit: I'm going to turn off notifications for this post because people keep misconstruing my problem and ignoring the difficult position I'm in. I hope you are all happy. Your response to this just simply says, I was never gonna make any other decision in the first place. If you had said, you know what, I was wrong for uninviting her, I shouldn't have appeased bigotry, that would have been a different story, but you clearly were going down the asshole route, and you just made yourself more of an asshole by doing this. So, asshole. If you've gotten this far in the video, please give this video a like, consider subscribing. AITA for not letting my trans daughter come out to our extended family until after our vacation. My daughter, F17, is transgender, but she currently is out to only her immediate family. My husband and I call her by her preferred name and use the right pronouns for her, but as nobody else in the family knows she's trans, they refer to her by her dead name and with he/him pronouns. So far, this has only been in periods of around an hour or two. So, in other words, it's been slightly bearable. But the thing is, we're going on a week-long vacation with some of our relatives soon, and we are all sharing a house. Because of this, our daughter will be referred to by her dead name and will be presenting as male. Oh, hell no. You're already the asshole, but let's keep reading. She has expressed her discomfort with this to the point where she's considering not going on vacation and staying home. Understandably. But her father and I both agree that she should wait to come out afterwards. It's not that anyone in the family is transphobic. If anything, they're probably the opposite. I'm not worried about her being in any danger or facing any transphobic comments, but I worried it wouldn't be enough time for them to fully understand that our daughter is trans, and the topic would take up the entire vacation, which nobody wants. wants. We all just want to be able to have a nice vacation and not have to deal with this gender stuff. Am I wrong for letting her not come out, or is my daughter being too selfish? You are the one being selfish, not your daughter. And let me explain here what's going on. Coming out as trans is often not at a convenient time. We come out when we absolutely have to. Based on what you're posting here, it sounds like you just don't want your daughter to come out because you don't have to deal with the ramifications of her coming out. You're not a true ally if that's what you're thinking. I'm serious. A true ally sticks up for people when it's hard for them. You need to do that. And the idea that it's bearable just for an hour of dead naming, no, it is miserable. That's why we transition. Coming out as trans is hardly ever a good time. And in fact, I would argue that going on this vacation is actually a perfect time to transition. It does take time for people to adjust to a new name and pronouns, especially if they know you well. And the best way of doing that is just to be around the person and using their new name and new pronouns. People in my life who have had the hardest time changing the name and pronouns are people who I don't see on a regular basis. That's why I think it's important to actually allow her to transition on this trip. So, asshole. As a trans woman, I know coming out isn't easy. But I've talked a lot about my experience here on YouTube, on TikTok, and on my Patreon. For as low as $3 a month, you get to see extended and uncensored cuts of my YouTube videos when applicable, including this video where you get to see a whole extra story. And I also have a comedy special, Pride and Joy, a trans story, where I talk all about being trans. Again, starts as low as $3 a month. And hey, for the $5 and $10 tiers, you actually get to see my videos early. And if you join for the $10 tier, you can have your name appear in these videos. So head on over to my Patreon, links in the description. Thank you. Alright, here's the next story. AITA for not telling my family friends that my daughter is trans. My daughter, age 12, told me she was a girl at 2 years old. A week after her second birthday. I kind of assumed she was just playing pretend. After a year of insistency, I realized it was something more. By the time she was 3.5, she had fully transitioned in every way she could at that age, and we haven't looked back since. Okay, so far so good. This seems like a really strong ally and a really strong parent. Let's keep reading. My cousin recently got married. His wife and her family did not know us when my daughter was younger, and I presume my cousin never thought to mention it. Anyway, we are there at their house. She has 2 daughters from previous marriage, and her younger sisters spend a lot of time together. So the girls were playing. My daughter excused herself to the bathroom, and I guess my cousin's stepdaughter followed her up. Anyway, 2 minutes later, we hear my daughter yell that the little one runs down the stairs and announces to the whole world that my daughter has a penis. I obviously ran up straight up to my daughter, who's in tears. Essentially, she was desperate and hadn't locked the door. Little one banged on it and saw her in there. Little one barged in and saw her in there. My daughter pees sitting down and the toilet faces the door, so it's kind of obvious. Cousins were coming up after me, asking what's going on. I explained her daughter had barged into the bathroom when my daughter was peeing, and she asked me if my daughter was secretly a boy, which obviously upset my daughter more. We left without me answering any of their questions. It was a day of cuddles following that, with my phone turned off. Honestly, you handled this situation as best you could. You should be commended for that. My cousin showed up at my door, and he said his wife had kicked him out after he stated he wouldn't share my daughter's private information. I thanked him and decided to deal with the situation. My daughter had given permission to tell them. I worked on some sort of protective force first. Called my 2 older sisters, one of which is married to a trans woman, to come over and stay with my baby while I dealt with everything. She had a good night with them. Anyway, the incident had reached a lot of people, and I had an influx of angry people say that I deceived them, and now they couldn't trust me, the case I lied about anything else. Essentially, I made a public post explaining my daughter is transgender came at a young age, and I didn't lie to anyone. She's a girl regardless of the genitals she has. No one took it particularly well, besides the people who already knew. Now, I'm not sure if keeping it a secret was the best way to go about things, seeing how negatively it affected everything. I feel bad for my daughter and family have been negatively affected. I will not apologize for not telling them. I don't feel like an apology is owed, but still don't know if I was necessarily in the right for keeping it a secret. So AITA. This is a very clear one. Not the asshole. You are allowing your daughter to live stealth. And for those who don't know, stealth means you don't go around telling other people you're trans. It means you don't go around telling other people you're trans, obviously with the exception of your partners and healthcare professionals, stuff like that. I think this mother was in the absolute right here. She did everything right. Not the asshole, and she actually did everything right in this situation. She protected her daughter, comforted her daughter, and did the right thing. She shouldn't have had to out her daughter. The other people in this situation were the assholes, and big ones too. AITA for asking my trans brother to be my bridesman. My brother Jake transitioned to female to male 3 years ago. I was and completely supportive of him. I am getting married next year, and I've been gathering my bridesmaid team. My twin sister is going to be the maid of honor, and it was also important to me to have Jake with me at the altar. So I asked Jake if he would be my bridesman and be a part of my side for the wedding party. I didn't think it would be an issue at all, but Jake freaked out. Jake said that he would be a groomsman for my fiance because he didn't want to be seen with my bridesmaids, all 3 of whom were girls, because people would just ask if he was a girl. He accused me of asking him to be a bridesman because I still thought of him as a girl, which isn't true. I explained to him that it didn't make any sense for him to stand by my fiance since they've only met a handful of times. But my fiance has the budget-approved number of groomsmen. And besides, Jake is my brother. I want him to stand by and support me during the wedding. Plus, before Jake transitioned, I always want to include him in my wedding, so why would his gender change anything like that? I see this argument that might feel dysphoric, but having a bridesman is becoming a more common tradition. Besides, he has a beard and he's wearing a suit, so there's no way anyone would think he was a girl. Jake and I fought back and forth for a while, and I finally snapped and told him he couldn't be in the wedding at all if he didn't want to stand by my side. He called me an asshole and made me feel awful. I guess I had to vent about this to strangers, so AITA. I'm gonna say not the asshole here. I can see where he's coming from with feeling dysphoric, because there are certain things about the body that even with hormones doesn't really change, but if he has a beard, it's a little bit more debatable. I don't think you're the asshole here, but I think it would have been better to say, look, bridesmen are becoming a bigger thing, and maybe like, I don't know, look at a catalog or something of like bridesmen suits or something like that, to try to find something that he would enjoy. Again, it sounds like you've probably already tried stuff like that, but I just want to cover the bases there. And there's an edit. He's still invited to my wedding as a guest, but I told him he can't be in the wedding party if he's not the bridesman. And I mean, that's fair. I mean, time is of the essence and sort of stuff like that. Not the asshole. AITA for taking my newly out trans daughter to my sister's wedding. Both my husband and I are 37. We have 2 daughters, Kate, 13, and Laura, 15, who is transgender. 2 months ago, my younger sister, Sarah, 28, invited us all to her wedding, to which we accepted. However, last week our daughter came to us in our room. She told us she feels like a girl in every single way except for when she looks in the mirror. She admitted that she was depressed and struggling with her confidence. It was midnight, so we told her we'd go shopping tomorrow and see if we couldn't find some of that confidence. So far you're doing great. I agree with this approach. Let's keep reading. The next day, my husband surprised me with an envelope of money and told me to make her day and he would make her night. To sum it up, my girls and I had a blast shopping. Took her to the salon where she walked out with a hot pink shorts bob. We bought a lot of clothes. She picked up a gorgeous black dress for the wedding. We laughed, we cried. My husband took her out for daddy-daughter date that he's always done with Kate. We had such an emotional week trying to make our girls know she's safe, loved, and accepted that hasn't even accepted her like we did. This is lovely. This is absolutely lovely. No one but my mom made a big deal. In a good way. My sister's fiance hadn't met us, so they didn't know Laura as a boy. None of them acted like they knew. Today, my sister's maid of honor, her sister-in-law Christy, texted me telling me I should have made Laura stay at home because it took the spotlight off Sarah and it really hurt her. She also said that it was disrespectful to take a trans person to a Christian wedding, knowing Sarah's trying to get right with God. I should have made Laura suck it up and wear a tux for the day. I texted back and told her she is utterly and completely out of line and never contact me again. Still, I called my sister and she admitted it hurt her feelings, made her feel like her day less about celebrating her and her husband and her family was focusing on Laura. She shared the same sentiment that we shouldn't have come across since we were going to go through a crisis. But she didn't hurt Laura, so she didn't say anything. AITA for taking my newly out trans daughter to my sister's wedding. You're labeled as the asshole, but I have a bit more mixed feelings on this. In one way, you're trying to protect them. Frankly, at this rate, I would have just skipped the wedding. I know, I want to miss this wedding. But when they're being such assholes and disrespectful to your daughter, you do not go along with this. And if you're wondering about timing and all this, like a week before the wedding, yeah, it's inconvenient. But here's the thing. We transition when we need to transition. Transitioning saves lives. Transitioning isn't just something you do in the spur of the moment. No, this was something that Laura probably thought about for a long, long time. And she came out when she absolutely had to. I don't know Laura, and I don't know her mindset, but there's a chance that if she was told she had to wait a week, that she wouldn't have been able to. I know I would have been in a similar situation, so I don't know. And I don't know if she would have been accepted at this wedding. So, I don't know. Okay, and there's an edit. TLDR, my daughter came out as trans a week before sister's wedding. She hadn't come out to the rest of the family yet, but we still attended the wedding, which shocked some, but mostly no one cared or knew. My sister was upset. It took the spotlight off of her and her husband that we should have stayed at home. Honestly, your sister's the asshole. And I get your decision to come, and frankly, it sounds like it went okay. But yeah, this is not an easy situation, but yeah, I'm gonna say not the asshole. You didn't make the decision I would have made, but not the asshole. You stood up for your daughter, and you deserve points for that. AITA for telling my trans friend to stop talking about T. I, 19M, am also transgender. Recently I found out that I have a problem with my heart. Therefore, I put my transition on hold. I found out there is an issue I have with my heart is long-term and could affect the possibility of me going on testosterone. I have told my friend, 19M, about this, and they acknowledged that fact. Recently, my friends started talking about them getting testosterone, and it felt like they were shoving it in my face. At some points, I was visibly upset by this, and they would see that, stop for a little while, then continue a little while later. Every conversation I had with them, they always wanted to mention their gender GP, or the fact that they were getting testosterone. I got so annoyed by the fact they were constantly bringing up after I expressed concern about my heart, so I wrote a long paragraph basically stating that I'm happy for them. I feel like they were shoving it in my face a little bit. I said that I'm happy to celebrate with them, and I'm happy for them. Our conversation about this topic is giving me dysphoria, and I would appreciate if they would cut it out, if they would cut down on it. I was very polite when I brought this up, but essentially sent me a paragraph back, making me feel as if I did something wrong. So, am I the asshole? So, I'm gonna say not the asshole. And the reason for that is your dysphoria is really important. Sure, you need to find a good balance between celebrating your friends' achievements, but there gotta be a mix there. But I don't think you're doing anything asshole-like. So, not the asshole. AITA for wanting to help my trans teen choose her own name. I, 42F, have a wonderful teenager, 15MTF, recently came out as trans. Her being trans changes nothing about my love for her. I always saw something different in her since she was young, so it wasn't much of a surprise. But when she shared her new name with me, I got really upset. Hear me out before you judge me. I have always loved the name I originally gave her. I had a sentimental attachment to it. It's a name that I really carefully selected and thought I feel like it had been something taken away from me. I understand the importance of a name and affirming her gender. So, out with the old and with the new. I suggested to my child that we come up with her new name together so it would feel like the first time again. I thought it would be a good compromise that would allow me to have some input with her name, would still be sentimental and important. To be frank, the name she chose for herself just isn't. I love her, but I don't think it's a name that would be good for the rest of her life. My daughter got upset with me and she said that this is her decision and she should have the final say. She accused me of not having respect and accepting her. I felt conflicted. I felt I wanted to support her, but I couldn't help but feel like I'm losing out on an important aspect of being a mother. So, AITA for wanting to help my trans teen choose her own name. Okay, so this one's a little bit weird. So I'm gonna say, not the asshole, but add an asterisk to it. The reason for that is because, well, it's her name, and she could choose it. You can talk about the names, you can bring up your concerns, but saying she won't want to live for the rest of her life, I know she's a teenager. I know. But a name is a very personal thing. And it's something to live with, okay? I chose my own name. In my case, when I chose my name, I did not talk to my parents about this. There was one friend I talked to about it, but that was it. There were a few names I tossed around for myself, but in the end, Sally was the one I went with. And I'm happy living as Sally. It is the name I should have been born with. And while my parents did not have any objections to it, it's also not their call, I think. Even though she's 15, just let her at least socially go by the name for now. See how she likes it, and maybe in like a few months or so, go for a legal one, if it works out. Trust me, I think you'll get used to it. So, not the asshole, but with an asterisk. AITA for telling my childhood bully, who's MTF transgender, that she will always be the boy who bullied me. When I was in middle school, I was viciously bullied by this boy, who I'll call Z. Spread rumors about me, called me stupid and useless every chance he got, and made school a living hell. It's been 12 years, and Z has since come out as MTF transgender. She messaged me over social media and asked to meet up. We went out for coffee and she apologized for bullying me. It was along the lines of, I'm sorry for being mean. I was young and I was struggling with my gender identity. I thanked her for her apology, but when she asked if she was forgiven, I tried to avoid answering. I'm still not over what she did to me. What Z did to me impacted me greatly as I was an impressionable young girl. I struggled a lot with self-esteem for years afterwards. Z started getting defensive. She told me I was being petty and that I should forgive her. I told her, why? You will always be the boy who bullied me. An apology won't change that. She got really offended when I used the word boy, and she said that I misgendered her. She called me a petty, transphobic, vindictive, and ignorant, then stomped out. AITA. The consensus on this post is that you're not an asshole. And I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here, and before people get upset, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to say, not only are you being an asshole, but this trans woman's also being an asshole. For different reasons. So, for one, bullying is rough. And it should be banned. Like, I'm not trying to be an apologist for bullying. Bullying is wrong and it shouldn't be done. And it takes time to get over this, if you ever do. And I don't expect you to be able to do that. That's fine. But you still misgender her, which is a form of bullying. I think this trans woman here, she was being an asshole because, well, she was assuming that her apology would be forgiven. You cannot go into an apology and expect to be forgiven. That's just not how life works. So I think you're both sort of assholes in this situation. You're not an asshole for being bullied, but I don't think it's an appropriate response to bully someone years after you were bullied. And I know there's a lot of history there. And it's tough to hear, but yeah, that's my consensus here. You're both assholes. Gender identity issues can have serious issues. Like for trans women, a lot of us feel the need to man up and that sort of stuff. And that can lead to toxic masculinity and bullying and stuff like that. And I agree, that's not a good excuse. If you had said, you're still the girl who bullied me, that would not have made you the asshole. It's the fact that you used the word boy. Because it is an act of bullying. You can't misgender someone because you're mad at them. You have to keep them gendered correctly even when you're pissed off. So, asshole. I have another video, AITA, where I talk about drag. So if you like that, please give that video a watch. Thank you for watching, And I also have a Patreon if you want to support me there. Thank you.